Thank you very much, Molly and Bex. That was super interesting. And next we've got Katrina Rolley, digital learning and engagement consultant. And Katrina is going to share with us her experience of creating a grey space.
Hi there. I can genuinely say it's extraordinary to be here. I'm going to be speaking about a very different project to kind of pretty much anything that we've heard about so far. And I hope that there will still be areas of connection and commonality. But at the moment, I'm probably feeling most connection and commonality with the detectorists. That's not the person inspecting them, but them. As Alex said, I'm here on behalf of Grey Space, which is a personal creative project inspired by Alasdair Gray. Now, in case you haven't come across Alasdair Gray, which many of you may not have done, he was an artist and a writer best known for the books Lanark and Poor Things, which you might have come across as the recent movie, and also the murals such as those at the Oranmore in Glasgow. So he was actually my uncle, and he was an uncle to my sister as well. And he was a creative inspiration to the writer Anita Sullivan, who is the third member of our collaborative project. And that's ours, effectively. So we are very much a personal passion project, and hence, the detectorists. We're small, we're unfunded, and we're created and maintained effectively by the three of us, in fact, mostly by the two of us, by me and my sister. But a grey space also reflects our wider background and interests. So Anita and I met as digital learning professionals, and in that context, a lot of the earlier talk about content design, that's my kind of world, but in the learning world. And a grey space does reflect those that kind of wider background. But Anita's a creative first and foremost. I also have a background in academia, cultural studies and museums, and my sister's a digital enthusiast who enjoys experimenting with technology, and we drew on all of these aspects of ourselves for our project. We see ourselves as a kind of small, slow, creative cultural heritage project, but we are powered by bigger ideas, and I wanted to start by sharing these with you. So the title of the session is Impact as Artefact. And why impact? I think when we think of cultural heritage, we tend to, as we've seen today, think of our public cultural heritage. But I'd suggest that the cultural heritage that has most power for us as individuals is our personal cultural heritage. Those creative works that have helped to shape us. The music, the games, the pictures, the books, the films that we collect, we save over time, as you can see, and that have real power for us as individuals. And our personal cultural heritage changes us by having an impact on us. It changes the way we think, how we feel, and what we do. It shapes who we become through our lives. This impact is what most creatives and their creations are also striving to achieve, with work that communicates something and that changes someone through an exchange of ideas and emotions. So creativity is really all about impact, from the creative through the creation to us. I would say we are the third essential pillar of this sort of creative trinity, really. And that our experience of impact really creates the value for a work of art. So you could also describe us as audience, but you could also describe us as the valuers of art. If art doesn't have an impact on us, we don't value it, and it's failed in its creative purpose, at least for us. And it's this kind of active role of us as the valuers of art that's at the heart of our project. So a grey space asks the question, how do we value this creative and his work? And we aim to answer that question by gathering information on what Alasdair has inspired us to think, feel, and do differently, in the hope that by seeing and valuing this creative through our eyes, we'll learn something about him and we'll feel something about ourselves and our own creative value and our own creative potential. So a grey space is really all about Alasdair and us. It celebrates his creativity through looking at our own. And from this perspective, our project doesn't really have an audience, just as we're not experts. We're creators ourselves, we're the valuers of Alasdair's art, and we're also the facilitators and the collaborators with other creatives and valuers. So we really, in our project, we're very much all in this together. On some level, we, as the facilitators, are actually the audience for our contributors' contributions. So that's the big picture, that's the theory. It all sounds very grand from that perspective. What is it? In physical terms, we're a website. We're digital only. We're a website called A Grey Space, which is where we build and we share our digital collection of impact artifacts. So we're both creative and we're also curative. We do use YouTube and Instagram, but to be honest, social isn't really our thing. As the fantastic speaker from the Tank Museum and so many other people have pointed out, it's incredibly specific skill and it takes a lot of time and effort. It's also quite fast and we're a bit slow. So we don't do a huge amount on social, although we have a presence. We inevitably focus on what interests us most. Given the aims of our project, it's really important to us that people feel empowered in terms of the content and the functionality of our website. And I mean, we've heard a lot about this today, and we feel equally passionately about inclusion. And even within our sort of tiny team, it is kind of front and centre for us. We've aimed to be inclusive in terms of trying to make our website as easy to use as possible. Also in terms of our look and feel, we want it to be distinctive but not overwhelming, so that all sorts of different creative works can shine in it. It's got a bit of Alasdair, but it's got a bit of us as well. And we've built in a lot of breathing space. We really wanted a grey space to be a calm place where people can feel relaxed and feel in control. And that's something that has come back from the limited amount of kind of testing and feedback that we've been able to do over time, that people really appreciate the sort of calmness of it. Another thing that we really emphasize through the website is that everyone is a potential contributor. We're constantly, even if people don't contribute very much, and most people don't spontaneously contribute, I hope that the fact that we're constantly inviting people to kind of creates a different feeling to it. We encourage active engagement through a grey space. And also we're represented by our creativity rather than our faces, and that kind of sounds tiny, but the more I thought about it, the more important I felt it was in this context. It's not that we have a problem showing people if it's relevant to the artwork or the article, but we don't use images to represent ourselves or others, as I think it can potentially feel excluding, and we couldn't possibly represent everybody that we would hope to try and reach. So we actually try and avoid representing ourselves where possible and try and sidestep that kind of do I fit in here question. And also for us, the project's really, it's not about us, it's about creativity and about those sort of ideas. So we're built in Squarespace. We're actually pretty straightforward in terms of our functionality, and despite the sort of curious names, and the website is very much about exploration, we've actually got, our sections are quite sort of straightforward. Mouth is your introduction, and then you've got these three sort of content sections. You've got Head, which looks at Alasdair's work through the creative eyes of another person or another project, and that's really important all the way through. It's always about this creative relationship, this creative connection. So Head is very much Alasdair through our work, our own creativity, and how Alasdair and his work has impacted on that. Heart is really, that's the most Alasdair focused. That's kind of Alasdair through our eyes. It's where we kind of capture how people value and how people remember Alasdair and his work. Anyone can contribute. and everyone's contribution is valued equally. So everyone gets the same amount of space, they answer the same questions, and we would actually really love to reach more people who we don't know or we can't sort of trace, and we hope that by broadening our reach over time, then we'll get more kind of people who have discovered Alasdair through his work rather than people that we're aware of. And those contributions, those words are made into a word cloud, quite a sort of standard thing, but still kind of interesting. So our sort of user review aspect, we don't use social a lot, but we've been influenced by it. And then Hands is really features our own project and what we've been inspired to create by Alasdair. And our big ongoing project in this space, well, our big kind of project that we haven't really managed to get off the ground as we would like to, but hopefully in time, is Gray's Place. So when Alasdair died, I knew his home was going to be dismantled very shortly afterwards. He didn't own it. It wasn't going to be around for very long. And it was really representative of his kind of creativity. It was like a physical manifestation of his mind. Because I worked in digital, that encouraged me to explore the possibility of having it recorded before it disappeared. And luckily, Glasgow's School of Art of Heritage Visualisation team came to the rescue and spent a day with students making a record of that space, scans, point cloud, photogrammetry. And our ultimate ambition really is that we would love to use that digital record to create and celebrate creativity creatively through that space. So not just to recreate it physically, but to use it as a kind of expansive, immersive experience that sort of both celebrates the things that you can't see and also shares a space that no longer exists. But even with technical advances, that's a big project. And after an initial grant application failed a long time, right at the start, we kind of decided to move on and build from the ground up with things that we could do, hence the website. We also have built an interactive experience which is video-based and allows us to use the scans to do 360 tours and little video tours. So quite simple and real-world and physical. So just quickly, because I'm getting close to out of time, that project was accessible for us, but the last thing I want to emphasize, and I think, it's come up so many times, I don't need to say too much about it, but for us, even as a small team, accessibility to everybody was incredibly important, particularly given the ethos of the site. So we've really, from the beginning, tried to focus on that, despite the fact that it obviously takes more time, more effort. We've worked on keeping things simple, keeping things intuitive, testing the obvious stuff, the colours, the forms, trying to build alternative formats into the content so that you've got choices, you've got options, and it's not reliant on one sort of form of access or another. We're rigorous about alt text, and we use this little Google plugin to check it. And I tell you, if you haven't used that, it's good fun because you can eavesdrop on other websites, and it's amazing how even now alt text is not sort of standard, and even when it's present, is not necessarily very useful. So this has been a real kind of whistle-stop tour, but it's been exciting to be able to share our project because while digital is amazing and it has allowed us to do an extraordinary amount of stuff as a kind of 2/3 person team, it's also very isolating. And for us, we really are sitting at home, connecting with each other and with our contributors over the internet, barely seeing another face and not working in this sector. Having no kind of context. So if anything I've said kind of inspires you and interests you, then we would love to connect, even just to say hello. Those are our contact details. And we would love to kind of take this creative conversation forward with new connections within a context that we feel we're working in, but we don't have a physical presence in, literally.